Hello and welcome back to Mr. Lamb Science Corner. Today we're going to look at a math game very similar to a game that we played before that you can see under Trominos. And let me spell that out here so you can find it. Trominos, I believe is how it's spelled. And if not, it's close enough to get you to where you find this. Okay, and in this time it is something called 5 in a row, and it's very similar in play in that you have a set of squares. This is what I did back in the old days where we didn't have things like the dry erase boards and things like that. And so these were consumable. So I made 3 on a page. And basically all I did, as you can see, is I just took some graph paper and cut out little sections and put it down there and copied it. This happens to be 12 by 20. And I think I did that because it looked about right. There's nothing special about 12 by 20. If you want to make it 10 by 20 or 8 by 15 or whatever fits, okay? I've taken and put on a little dry erase thing. This, by the way, comes from Post-it. So I assume that you can buy these from somewhere. I went to the National Science Teachers Convention and they gave me several sets of these things. So I'm assuming that you can buy them, but I didn't have to because it came with the my wife and I spent several days going through hundreds of booths and grabbing as much free stuff as we could grab that we thought would be useful for the purposes of these videos. And these have been wonderful, I gotta tell you. Now, let's talk about the game first, and we'll talk about these more. Okay, so basically, I just made up a set here. Now, this is fairly small for 5 in a row, because the idea is the first person who gets 5, either horizontally or vertically, no diagonals. Don't allow diagonals. It's got to be this way or this way, but it can be anywhere. If you get 5 in a row, you win. Okay, so what you want to do is, if you're playing here, I'll just speed the game up here a little bit, and I'll turn this. Okay, I'll put up here M M M M. If I get 4 in a row like this, that's probably going to cause some concern to the person I'm playing with. So they're going to put a J right there, and of course they're going to, you go back and forth, so there's several more J's here, and presumably that person's going to try to win too, but they're going to block me by putting one there, and then I have to go somewhere else. So a lot of times you're going to wind up where there's no winners. But if you make it big enough, then you're going to make it harder to see, and you can sneak in, you get 5. So this is a good game to let your students play, or if you happen to have a little time, let them challenge you. You play in there, because the kids are always happy when you win, because you're the teacher and you're supposed to win. But they are ecstatic when you lose, especially if you are seen to be trying your best. And let me tell you, there are times when even playing your best and you're playing to win, you're going to lose. And that's okay, because like I said, the kids love it. They talk about it for some time. Depends upon the age of the kids, I suppose, too. But anyway, so you basically, you just put in, you know, initials. Now if you're playing with these, you know, that's a little small, but it still can be done. You know, you can still put initials in there, and you can do this, and you can do this. So this worked well. You know, 12 by 20 worked really well. Quite frankly, what I would do is I would take a dry erase board, and you can buy at a place like Home Depot or something like this. You can buy a 4 foot by 8 foot piece of essentially dry erase board. It's called, I think, melamine or melamine, something like that. Anyway, it has a very slick surface on one side and wood on the other. And a 4 foot by 8 foot is going to look much bigger, but something like this. And what I did, and I left them all at school, my gift to the school, a 8-inch by 16-inch. So I just cut it in probably 16-inch wide, and then cut it 8 inches this way. And if you do this, you can get a grand in total of 36 dry erase boards out of one sheet that cost, I don't know, I bought this a few years ago, maybe 30 bucks. And you can get 36 of these things, and they last just about forever. And when I taught math, we grabbed the dry erase boards. And even when I taught chemistry, grabbed the dry erase boards, had the work problems, they'd all hold them up like this. I'd go like, okay, you know, check a few. No, I wouldn't check all of them, but I'd check a few down through there and say, okay, it looks like you got the right idea. Erase them. Now, I'm using markers because markers are quite easy to work with, but there's a problem with them, and that is the kids, oftentimes, they just put the lid back on like this. And unless you were very careful about checking every single marker, every single time you use them, they're going to dry out. And then you just throw them away. You can, they are fairly expensive, but you can buy Crayola crayons for dry erase boards. They say they're different than regular crayons. I'm guessing they are. I do know they're more expensive, but they work really well for dry erase boards. They are a little harder to erase, and they build up on the cloth, so you have to launder them every usually about twice a year. It depends on how often you use them. You know, I used them quite a bit, so you know, 2, 3, 4 times a year they got laundered. And fortunately, one of the custodians was very nice in going like, oh, these need to be laundered, and grabbed them and took them off and showed up the next day all taken care of, and I didn't have to worry about them. You may not be that lucky, but they're not that hard to launder. Just go home, put them in, and wash them. And the nice thing is that you can then take some of these things. Let's pretend this is 8-inch by 16-inch, and you can, in permanent marker, put down a grid similar to this, maybe a little bit smaller, so you can get more squares in. Because the more squares, the longer the game, and the better the game, I think. So anyway, so with permanent marker, you can put that in, and then you can use dry erase, either the crayon or the marker here. And when you erase it, the permanent marker stays on for at least a good while, and the initials will erase and everything's fine. So, like I said, the easiest way to do this is to put it on a paper. Just take some graph paper. You may want to get, you know, this is 1/4 inch, I think. You can get 1/2 inch. and you can make these different sizes. You can make one per piece of paper, put it on both sides if you want to, and do this. But the basic game is very simple. You just have to get 5 in a row, horizontally or vertically, and it's that simple. Okay, so thank you and goodbye.